Hello, everyone. Tonight's story begins with a single phone ring at midnight. Just one ring that no one should have heard. But when the old man answered, a whisper came through the static. "It's so dark down here." And from that night on, the sea never gave him back. The sea had always whispered beneath the cliffs, its voice a lullaby for those who lived above it. The old couple had grown used to the rhythm of waves breaking against stone, the soft wail of the wind threading through the gaps in their windows. Their cottage stood alone, weathered by decades of salt and storm, its walls holding the scent of damp wood and forgotten summers. They lived quietly, their world reduced to tea by the fire, walks by the shore, and the occasional visitor from the town below. But after the tragedy that took their only son, silence became both comfort and curse. For it was within that silence that the ringing began. A single note, sharp and sudden, cutting through the stillness like a blade. It always came at the same hour, midnight, never more than one ring. At first, they dismissed it as a line fault, but soon the sound began to feel deliberate, almost expectant, as though something or someone was waiting on the other end. The first night it rang, the old man rose from his chair, his joints stiff from age, and stared at the phone resting on the table. It was an older model, ivory in color, with a dial that clicked as it turned. He waited for it to ring again, but it did not. The next evening, the same thing happened. One ring, then silence. He had worked with machines all his life, knew their patterns and their faults. Yet this was different. The line was clear, no hum or interference, no trace of error when he lifted the receiver. Still, the sound lingered in his mind, repeating itself in his dreams, merging with the rhythm of the sea outside. When he told his wife, she looked away, her eyes glistening in the dim firelight. "It's nothing," she said softly, "just the sea playing tricks." But even as she spoke, the phone rang again, that single note echoing through the house like a cry from beneath the waves. Days turned to weeks, and the ringing continued. Always the same time, always the same single call. They tried disconnecting the line, but when they did, they could still hear it faintly. Through the walls, through the pipes, even in the wind that brushed against the windows. The old man began keeping a log, marking each night and minute it occurred. Midnight? Exactly. Never a second early, never late. He phoned the company, and a young technician came to inspect the line. After hours of testing, the man shook his head. "No fault at all," he said uneasily. "But I'll tell you something strange. The system shows a call coming from your own number." The old man frowned, dismissing it as a clerical mistake. But that night, when the phone rang once more, he could have sworn he heard the faint sound of breathing at the other end, slow and wet, like air drawn through water. Sleep no longer came easily. The nights grew longer, the air heavier. The sea began to roar louder, as though stirred by something unseen beneath its surface. The couple moved their bed to the parlor to avoid the sound, but the phone followed them in their thoughts. The old man became obsessed, watching the clock, waiting. Midnight arrived, and he snatched the receiver before the first ring finished. For a long moment, there was nothing, only the soft static of the line. Then a voice whispered, barely audible, "It's so dark down here." The old man froze, every muscle locking in place, his breath caught in his throat, his pulse pounding in his ears. He wanted to speak, to demand who was there, but no words came. The line went dead, and the silence that followed was worse than any sound could have been. The next morning, he told his wife what he'd heard. She said nothing for a long time, just stared at the window overlooking the sea. Finally, she whispered, You shouldn't have answered. From that day, she refused to touch the phone, refused even to look at it. But the old man could not leave it alone. He began sitting beside it each night, waiting for the ring, waiting for the voice to return. It became a ritual, the clock striking 12, the phone trembling once, and the sea crashing outside as if echoing the call. Sometimes he thought he heard faint laughter within the wind. Other nights, the voice would come again, whispering the same words, softer each time, like something drifting farther away. He tried tracing the call, but every attempt led back to the same source, his own number. Sleep turned into brief, haunted dozes. He would wake with the feeling of being watched, the sound of dripping water echoing through the hallway. Once, he followed it to the kitchen, where he found the floor wet, though no pipe had burst. No rain had fallen. The footprints leading away from the puddle were bare, small, and ended by the back door. He opened it to the night, to the dark expanse of cliffs and the endless sea beyond. The waves glowed faintly under the moonlight, and for a moment he thought he saw a figure standing by the edge, motionless, staring up at the house. He blinked, and it was gone. Only the sound of the sea remained, steady and cold, whispering a name he dared not speak aloud. The following night, he sat once more by the phone, the house dark around him. His wife had gone to bed early, her face pale and drawn. The clock ticked toward midnight, each second a drop of tension in the still air. When the ringing came, he was ready. He lifted the receiver quickly, pressing it to his ear. "Who are you?" he whispered. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then the voice returned, faint and wet. "It's cold. It's dark down here." His breath trembled. "Where?" he asked. The voice sighed, almost like a wave retreating. "Below." The line cut off. He stared at the phone, its dial still gently spinning, and made his decision. At dawn, his wife woke to find his side of the bed empty. The front door was open, the sea wind howling through it. On the table lay the phone, its receiver off the hook, the faint hiss of static filling the room. She followed the sound of gulls down to the cliffs, her heart pounding against her ribs. Below, the tide crashed violently against the rocks, and there, near the edge, lay his coat, folded neatly beside a trail of footprints that led to nothing. The police found no trace of him that day, nor the next. But when they brought the phone from the cottage as evidence, one of the officers noticed something strange. The last number dialed matched the couple's own. To this day, the house still stands, its windows staring out toward the restless sea. Locals say that on stormy nights, when the wind howls and the waves strike the cliffs, a faint ringing can be heard within its walls. Just one ring, never more. And if you're brave or foolish enough to answer it, they say you'll hear a voice from somewhere deep below, whispering through the static. "It's so dark down here." Then, before you can speak, the line goes dead, and the sea grows louder, as though welcoming another soul home. So